El diputado morenista Arturo Ávila y la abogada Vanessa Romero defienden la 4T en contra de los opositores Denise y Triana en inglés en la BBC de Londres. Corre video.
Johnny, how are you? First of all, thank you for letting us be there with you. Let me tell you that in Mexico, we're living a new political phase, which we call it the fourth transformation. And also, let me tell you that this is a very peaceful revolution that seeks to put an end to the corrupt government that favored the richest and created in the history of Mexico an enormous inequality. It wasn't until now that Mexico managed to lift 9.5 million people out of poverty. And this is data according to the World Bank data. And of course, we started to reduce the violence, which was caused by the government represented by the PAN party, the one that is represented here by the ex-deputy Triana. We achieved history with our first female president after 200 years of Mexican Republic. And the first woman, by the way, of North America, with Claudia Sheinbaum, all women arrived. And of course, talking about immigration, we're basically taking care of it. As you may know, no one that is immigrating for another country does it, or the challenge of immigration, it's rooted by a fundamental belief. No one that migrates to another country do it for pleasure. Migrants represent a humanitarian issue.
I understand all that, but I want to bring you to the question in particular, which was about the relationship with the United States, whether having a new female president will change that relationship for the better, and of course, dependent on the result of that election.
We do have a good relation with the United States, of course. It's our more important partner, social partner. We have a free trade with not just with the United States, with Canada, but there's something different in the policy that we're applying. In the past, the PAN and the PRI, which they represent, they used to subordinate to the US government. And now, in fact, we want to coordinate. And this is completely different. We want to have respect from them because we're a sovereign country. And with these principles, we can change our relation. Never more, we're going to be the backyard of the United States. Never more. That's the past. Now, we're going to coordinate relations at the same level with this country. And that's very important to say.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Denise Dresser, academic and writer, the question about whether or not having a first female president might change the relationship with your neighbour to the north.
Well, first of all, I would disagree with a lot of what the representative of the ruling party has just said. His is a political statement, and there's a big difference between rhetoric and reality. I celebrate the arrival of a first woman to the presidency to Mexico, but at the same time, I would question whether Mexico's democracy is going to survive what is called the fourth transformation, something you mentioned in your introduction. The judiciary is now going to be elected, basically controlled by the ruling party, and there are many other changes that have occurred, dismantling of checks and balances, and a party winning with a supermajority that has allowed it to now reform the Constitution entirely on its own, taking Mexico back to a regressive period in its history when it was dominated by basically one-party rule.
Okay, let's talk about the relations between Mexico and USA. During the administration of President López Obrador, more than 3 million Mexicans crossed our northern border to the United States, which is a 196% increase compared to the administration of Peña Nieto. Donald Trump claimed he banned López Obrador with the Remain in Mexico program, that's the name, forcing him to deploy 28,000 Mexican soldiers to our border. We become the U.S. Border Patrol. That's incredible. Sheinbaum faces the enormous challenge of debating to either Trump or Kamala Harris. Both candidates have taken a harsh and toothless stance on migration. What we expect is for our president to defend the rights of Mexicans both within and outside Mexico. I hear Arturo laughing. Hello, Mr. Arturo.
Yes, of course. I'm laughing because you guys are always lying. The PAN political party and the PRI political party, they're experts in lying. Let's go to history. He should remember because PAN, from his political party, was president of Mexico when he declared this war against drug cartels.
We will have time to debate, to discuss this.
I want to know
Jorge, do you want to just finish up? Arturo, at any rate, to this first question of the relationship with the United States.
I'll keep laughing.
And you keep laughing if you want to, Arturo. Vanessa Romero, independent legal consultant and writer. What do you make of the relationship now, and what do you think the chances of improvement are?
I think the relationship between the U.S. and Mexico is likely to be more diplomatic because, based on two things. First of all, because Sheinbaum has been strategic in appointing only men to lead the key ministry that will lead with Trump if he wins. Juan Ramón de la Fuente, who will head the foreign ministry with extensive diplomatic negotiation experience, and Marcelo Ebrard, who will lead the Ministry of Economy and has already negotiated the U.S. MCA in the past with Trump. Based on that and on gender evidence that suggests that women, we tend to govern with a more diplomatic approach and focus on achieving better results. Well, it's widely known that various studies have shown that female leaders often prioritize dialogue, cooperation, inclusivity in their policies. I think we will have a way more better relationship with the US than
Vanessa,
we have.
thank you very much.
It is contrary to human rights. Impartial judges will be no longer exist, and they will become political militants of the ruling party. Terrible. The reform's sole intention is to accumulate power in the hands of the president. This is authoritarianism.
Thank you very much, Jorge.
Also, it is important to acknowledge that the judiciary before the reform was in a terrible state. It was corrupt, influenced by economic and corporate power, the organized crime, and also without a real disciplinary system in place.
Going very quickly back to relations with the US, imagine the following scenario. Donald Trump wins in the US election. He wins a supermajority. With that, he reforms the Constitution so that all of the judges, ministers of the Supreme Court, and everyone, all of the judges who take care of conflicts or address post-electoral conflicts are elected by the people. No one in the world would hesitate to say that that would be the end of American democracy as we know it, because it would mean control of the judiciary by one party that is in the government. It would mean the end of the separation of powers.
Government, do you dispute that interpretation of what the reform will bring?
Yes, of course, because the Constitution as it was will allow the president, if they want it, if they were not agree on the Senate, for example, to put directly people from the Supreme Court. What the reform proposes is something that no one could oppose to. Let me tell you, there's...
Well, hang on, sorry. The US ambassador has already opposed it, as has Canada's ambassador, in very straightforward terms.
Let me tell you, who can oppose to this? Austerity. We say that there cannot be wealthy government with poor population. And currently, we have ministers earning, listen to this, please, almost $500,000 per year. This will change with the new reform. There are 202,000 persons working right now in the judiciary, earning more than the president, earning 100 more times than the minimum wage. You can imagine that in a place like Mexico. The other thing that it's important to say is we're looking forward to stop the conflict of interest. A disciplinary court will be created. Well, it's created right now, of course, will be created with the new constitution that will allow the actions of judges to be judged by judges elected democratically. Because right now, they judge themselves. That's amazing. We will have strict requirements, such as proven honesty, good academic standards, being recognized individuals, and being elected by a selection committees. Okay. We also seem to get results with our government. And we need to first ask Joni, what happened in Mexico? Why did our country fall apart? What was this phenomenon that causes this? And let me tell you real briefly. Felipe Calderón declared war against drug cartels.
The former president declared war against drug cartels.
That's correct. He allowed the entry of weapons, which is recognized. These arms went directly to the criminals. He sent the army out of the barracks without any strategy. That was the real militarization. Meanwhile, the person, Johnny, in charge of the country, security, was an ally of the Chapo Guzman. This Lord cartel, López Obrador, is achieving for the first time in nearly 20 years a downward trend in homicides. And this is important to say. Today, the causes of insecurity we are also addressed. Why? Because we kept out of the poverty more than 9.5 million people. And this is the World Bank data. The National Guard currently has 130,000 deployed members. So we're doing things, new things. We're doing things that are giving results for Mexicans.
This administration that is leaving has put the country in probably its worst security situation ever. It is the most violent term in the past 18 years.
And you connect the primary national police force, not to the Interior Ministry, but to the Ministry of Defense. I mean, that is militarization, isn't it?
Well, let me tell you, there's a lot of examples in the world, such as Italy, France, Chile, and Spain, that make the most of their army. We take the most of the army, which in our country, let me tell you, is the one of the institutions that people trust the most. Right now, the National Guard is already specializing in human rights and, of course, in police focused to citizen security.
Okay, thank you very much.
Y a mí me da gusto que aquí la BBC de Londres puso a 2 contra 2. ¿Y qué hacen los medios mexicanos? Ponen a Morena contra uno de MC, uno del PRD, uno del PAN. Siempre es así. Deberían poner 2 y 2 o 1 y 1, ¿verdad? Así es como debe de ser. Y aquí cada quien expuso lo que pudo, unos con un inglés muy mocho, muy feo. Traté de traducir porque híjole, sí estaban, no pronunciaban bien las palabras y traté de traducir lo mejor que pude. Si tú tienes ahí algún detalle me puedes ayudar en los comentarios, pero la idea es que se entienda todo el contexto. Aquí lo que les está diciendo en su cara este Arturo Ávila es que son unos mentirosos el PRI y el PAN y hasta se burla. Hasta el conductor británico se da cuenta que se burla y se sigue burlando, no hay problema, porque no se aguanta, ¿no? Triana leyendo ahí, porque ya sabía que iban a hacer la entrevista, leyendo con un inglés muy malo, lo que tenía que decir, y pues obviamente lo que trató de decir Arturo Ávila es que ya el PRI y el PAN es un partido podrido, es un sistema podrido, dejó muy en claro la estrategia de Felipe Calderón y cómo ahora con la Guardia Nacional se está cambiando la tendencia. Y es cierto, la tendencia va a la baja. Obviamente, en números, obviamente el listón quedó muy, muy alto porque Calderón recibió un país, entre comillas, más pacífico. Y para dar un golpe de legitimidad, porque se había robado la elección, saca, como dice Arturo, saca a los militares de los cuarteles. Sin estrategia. Ahora ya hay cuarteles, hay la Guardia Nacional que es confiable. La gente confía en el Ejército, la Marina y la Guardia Nacional. Entonces también dijo ahí que se sacó a 9.5 millones de la pobreza, cosa que ni Dresser ni Triana mencionaron, ¿sí? También habla Vanessa sobre la delicadeza que tiene Claudia Sheinbaum a poner puros hombres ahora para lidiar con Trump si es que gana, espero que no. Pero cualquiera, ahora sí que son tan malos el pinto como el colorado. Los demócratas y republicanos son como el PRI y el PAN, no hay que buscarle mucho. Y pero dice que sí tiene ese toque de delicadeza de diplomacia al poner a puros hombres experimentados como Marcelo Ebrard en economía, que se las sabe todas, que tiene las credenciales para ser presidente, aunque hay mucha gente pues obviamente no opinó lo mismo porque puso a Claudia encima la interna y es respetable, claro que sí. Y Juan Ramón de la Fuente, un hombre de muchísima experiencia. La reforma judicial tienen que ser gente proba, honesta, no como los de ahorita, que el 89% de los jueces son puestos por nepotismo y el 11% solamente por carrera judicial. Toda una farsa. Dime qué opinas tú. Hasta luego.